Good evening. So, this is tonight's update on technical difficulties from the People's Press Project. This is Technical Difficulties, the Cryptcast, on 88.1 FM in Fargo Moorhead and www.kpppfm.com. So, the second part of this week's broadcast, and I decided to see if YouTube will let me do this. So, excuse the sketchiness. And just let me bring up my list of stuff. Yay, live broadcast. Actually, joking apart, this is part of the reason I'm kind of happier doing this. I was always a live broadcaster for the years of technical difficulties on the Extraordinary Resonance 104.4 FM in London. And so this is kind of easier, and I hear the arrival of someone.
Yeah, I'm not here.
Sonia's not here. So yeah, and this is bridging that gap back to live broadcast, and they're therefore easier to deal with than trying to structure an hour and pre-recorded and then sit there obsessing about editing it properly, because I'm a perfectionist when it comes to radio stuff. So there we are, and welcome back. A couple of things at the top. First of all, I'm a pacifist, and I have been for years, and so when I read a report, as I did a few years ago, from a rapporteur of disability affairs at the United Nations, that says that the single biggest cause of disability in the world is war, it reinforces my pacifism. Unfortunately, I live in an area where pacifism is not exactly the predominant ideology. People go out and preachers for fun and parade them. But right now, there is a pressure in this country that seems to be unusually high from people like the Parkland, Florida massacre survivors to cut down on the ownership of guns which have no functioning use other than to kill people and large amounts of people. And many of these are modeled on military weapons and therefore have no real functioning use in civilian society, even if you're not a pacifist. Obviously, as one, I would be quite happy if the Second Amendment was repealed and no one had the right to own a gun. There we are. I've said it. And as I said before, I think there probably should be more awareness of this within the disabled community, that guns cause disabilities, cause people to be disabled and killed, and enable police forces to kill disabled people through misunderstanding or deliberate misaction. There is a track record there. We did a show about the frequency with which disabled people have been killed by the police. You can find it on kpppfm.com. It's the show with David Perry, the illustrious David Perry, who can be found on Twitter at lollardfish, LOLLARDFISH. He's a history professor at the U of M, University of Minnesota, and he is also a disability rights journalist. Talking of the University of Minnesota, excuse me one moment. Hey Google, turn on the living room lights. Hey Google, turn on the living room lights.
Okay, turning on 3 lights.
Yay, live broadcasting. So yeah, talking of the University of Minnesota, the one and only Leroy Moore, who you can also find on the kpppfm.com technical difficulties archive, is giving a talk at the U of M coming up. So let me dig out the details. Sorry, this is taking longer than I thought. So the event that Leroy Moore, the talk that Leroy Moore is giving is called The Untold Black Disabled Reality Through Hard-Hitting Poetry and Song. Thursday, April 12th, which is this Thursday, at the Beacon Room of the Reckwell Center, and that is RECWELL, 123 Harvard Street Southeast in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Doors open at 4. Program starts at 4:15. So as a suggestion, especially if your knowledge of Black disabled history is not where it should be or where you think it should be, learn some more. And another thing I was going to mention at the top of this show, although we're now 8 minutes in, so it's hardly the top of the show, is that I have an issue, a challenge set forth. I work for the Communication Service for the Deaf, CSD. It's a non-profit organization that runs deaf relay services. And therefore, in order to not mess up my employment or break the company's excuse me, the company's social media rules about the representation of their company in public, I choose not to deal with deaf rights issues publicly, identifiably. And I wonder if there's a way around this, but at the moment I haven't found it, and I choose it's a better thing in terms of my transparency as a journalist for me not to opine on subjects where I have a financial interest. So there we are, and I apologize in advance for any effect that may have. Side point. This sweatshirt I'm wearing is not an accident. Accessibility does matter, but also it's it was a match funded, therefore basically a gift from someone who was approached to fund the sweater for me because I couldn't afford it, but produced and still sold by someone called Bree May, BREEMAE. They are on Twitter at the Bree May, and you can find this design and other variants of it for instance, LGBT disabled people, trans disabled people, on that Twitter. Apparently my voice is a little bit ropey today. I apologize. I will be back. Excuse me. I need to check something. I'll be back.